President Trump touching down in Washington this morning following his historic meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Singapore. The two leaders signed off on working toward denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. The president tweeted out this morning: "Just landed a long trip, but everybody can now feel much safer than the day I took office. There is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea. Meeting with Kim Jong-un was an interesting and very positive experience. North Korea has great potential for the future." Joining me now to talk more about that in Washington, retired Air Force Colonel Congresswoman Martha McSally of Arizona, along with House Armed Services Committee member Congressman John Garamendi of California. Congressman and Congresswoman, it's good to see you both. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to see you too. Happy anniversary.
Thank you so much.
Indeed.
But let me kick it off with you, Congresswoman. Your takeaway, first off, on the Singapore summit.
Well, I was just over in South Korea a few weeks ago at the DMZ, visiting our troops and commanders and South Korean leaders. And look, I just applaud President Trump for his leadership and the strength in the negotiations to get us to this historic moment. I do believe there is now an opening, and it is all up to Kim what he's going to do next. He is in a position of weakness. We are in a position of strength. And he needs to now show in good faith that this is going to be different than the past, that he is going to be taking a serious path to complete, verifiable and irreversible denuclearization. So it's up to him now.
And do you believe that we will be able to verify? We will be able to actually check on whether or not he's complying?
Well, those are going to be parts of the next steps. I think they should be starting to, part of the negotiations going forward would be for them to come forward and reveal every single site they have where they've done research and testing and scientists and labs and everything related to that. Open up the books for inspectors to come in a very intrusive way. And I think those next steps in the negotiation will really show whether he's serious or whether he's going to, blow things up with reporters showing, but not actually inspectors seeing what their capabilities are and being very open about it and serious about heading down that path.
Congressman Garamendi, let me ask you about the issues surrounding these war games. The president yesterday said that he was going to be stopping the war games between the U.S. and South Korea. And then people were worried that, the readiness would come into play. So now you've got Mike Pence saying, wait, the big exercises may stop, but we're still going to be doing training. Your thoughts on what should be happening?
Well, first of all, they're not games at all. These are very, very serious and extremely important exercises in which we not only make sure that our own troops are prepared in every way for whatever eventualities there may be on the Korean Peninsula, but also that we're able to work with our allies, specifically South Korea. So this is extremely important that we be able to continue these exercises at whatever level is necessary to make sure that our troops are ready. The notion that the nuclear threat on the Korean Peninsula is over simply is not true. That threat is there as long as North Korea has a bomb, and they have multiple bombs, and the delivery systems, and they have multiple delivery systems. There's a long, long way to go here, but it's extremely important that at least the first steps have been taken down a path. Keep in mind that this is not the first effort to go down the path of denuclearization. It's actually been about the last 40 years that efforts have been made by multiple American administrations to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. So this is not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult, but it is extremely important that the negotiations are underway.
But this is the first time a sitting president actually went face-to-face with the leader of North Korea, which is quite extraordinary. Would you say that step one was a success? Well,
certainly it was. It certainly was in every way. It was a terrific photo opportunity, a chance for the two leaders to talk to each other, get to know each other. Right. I suppose the president would say feel each other out, and that's all good. The question is, did they agree on anything other than the few words in that joint communication? And the answer is probably we've got some open questions out ahead of us just listening to what North Korea is saying that they think the president agreed to and what the president says that he thought he agreed to. Right. So we'll see. There's a lot, but it's important. Of the three paths that were open to us, one is out-and-out war to stop their nuclear ambitions. The second was simply accept the fact that they could threaten the United States. That's not a good one. The third path is negotiations, and that's underway, and that's a good thing.
All right, so we were expecting that this would not happen in one meeting. Actually, the president said that it's probably going to be a few meetings. Let's talk trade for a moment. President Trump now says that Canada will pay a price after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau insisted that his country, quote, would not be pushed around by the U.S. on trade. Watch.
I have a good relationship with Justin Trudeau. I really did. Other than he had a news conference that he had because he assumed I was in an airplane and I wasn't watching. He learned that's going to cost a lot of money for the people of Canada. He learned. You can't do that. You can't do that.
Congresswoman, the comments came on the same day that the president's top trade advisor, Peter Navarro, basically apologized for saying there was a special place in hell for world leaders who stabbed the president in the back. But what do you think about this, Congresswoman, in terms of trade and what we need to be doing in terms of getting better trade deals? But the more important issue, in my view, is the theft of intellectual property that the Chinese have been doing for years, as well as the transfer of technology. What to do?
Well, look, I'm generally a conservative, free and fair trade person, but there are some very real issues, specifically with China stealing our intellectual property, demanding that companies give them access for this technologies that we've developed. These are national security issues. They are very real issues. We're actually having a classified briefing on this again today in the Homeland Security Committee. And so the president is trying to address these because national security is at stake. And he's looking around to see about decisions of the past and where they are hurting American workers and hurting the American economy. And he's trying to negotiate both with people who are not very friendly with us and also with our friends and partners. So he's working through this. I've met with Secretary Ross and the trade representative and also Larry Kudlow to share concerns about kind of where some of this goes related to farmers and ranchers and others in the ag community and others that I represent, wanting to make sure that it ends up not hurting our local communities. But, you know, the president is addressing some very real issues and things that need to be changed.
And then another big issue is the ZTE situation, Congressman Garamendi. I mean, the senators are seeking to reverse the White House's deal to revive this Chinese telecom company, ZTE. They're not seeing any pushback from President Trump. This comes as the administration could slap tariffs on Chinese goods as soon as Friday. Do you agree with the move by senators to stop ZTE?
Absolutely. And in fact, we're doing so in the House. The House version of the National Defense Authorization Act has some similar, very tough language on ZTE. We certainly cannot allow ZTE products to be used by any of our military and really ought not be available in the United States because clearly it is a channel for espionage by the Chinese. At the very least, to say nothing of the issues of international trade and things that go with that. And so, yes, ZTE should be whacked very, very hard, should not be allowed to have access to American technology. The senators are right. And frankly, the House Armed Services Committee, where Ms. McSally and I share a seat on that committee, we're also correct.
Yeah, well, we'll see if things change or the tone changes now that this Singapore summit is in the rearview mirror, because President Xi called President Trump directly and said, I need a favor from you. Can you please do me a favor and help me with ZTE, just 2 weeks before this Singapore summit? So I suppose that's one of the reasons that the president wanted China on his side going into the North Korean summit. I don't know.